I know you guys all have stuff to do, so thank you first of all for what you do. Such an important ministry. The first 2 pages, front and back, are not necessary. They're just things that if you want to take them home and take them to a holy hour and reflect on them or something, they're teachings on the real presence of the Eucharist from Jesus all the way through to the end. So you can just skip those. And there is on the back of page 4, there's the more practical stuff. And this is not just like, this will be a dialogue so that I can learn from you and back and forth. One thing that I would say is, and these are not things like, it wasn't like, oh, I got here and I'm like, oh, these are problems, so I've got to, these are just things that we talk about every parish, I think, just as a kind of a refresher. Oh, I'm sorry, didn't give you one. Sometimes people will just out of habit or whatever will refer to things as bread and wine even after they've been consecrated. So like if you could kind of think about it, like I'm thinking like for the servers or other people that are back there, by the time you are distributing something, it's not bread or wine. It's the precious blood and the body of Christ. So if we could pay attention to that, I'm not saying that like, oh, I got here and this is going on. I hope you don't hear me. It's like, okay. This is probably the one thing that will be strange or new, and that is the question about when to enter the sanctuary. In the Roman Missal that we use here, which that's a weird term maybe, this is the Roman Missal, and missal means M-I-S-S-A-L, not like a ballistic missile, but missa is mass. In Italian, missal is like the short for the. So in the front, there's about a 80-page document called a General Instruction on the Roman Missal. And that's what Archbishop Tobin is really asking parishes in the Archdiocese to really use that for Mass. And so, a thing that you don't see in a lot of parishes, but is in there, in paragraph 162, the people, you, who are helping distribute Holy Communion should not approach the altar before the priest has received communion, and they are always to receive from the hands of the pre-celebrant the vessel containing either species. Okay, so these ministers should not approach the altar before the priest has received communion. Now that's not the practice here, and it's not the practice in 95% of our parishes, maybe 99%. But it's in there, and that's what Archbishop Tobin is asking us to move toward. Now, I know that we have hand sanitizer, right? Is that what you guys are doing when you go back in there, is grab some hand sanitizer?
Or a sink.
Or the sink, I got you. Yep, okay. We can think, first of all, it's probably easiest to all line up together. A lot of times what you'll see in parishes is as people are giving the sign of peace and as they come up on their own at their own time, they'll come to the middle and just bow to the tabernacle, like if they're coming over from that side, and then kind of just line up over here. And I think that's probably the easiest thing to do here, given the cantors there. Like it would be kind of strange. I think if you stand here, people are always like, oh, everyone's going to be looking at me. Usually if you're off to the side, most people don't even notice. So I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of stand over here. If you're coming from this side, I would say you don't have to come back to the middle. You could just go over there. Help me. You guys can help me figure out either later, now, or after we're done, or some other day. I don't know if we want to have. I've seen it in parishes where they have a Germex thing just sitting here, something along those lines. If we want to do that, you guys can let me know what you think would work best. We won't worry about that. But basically, what we do is it doesn't really. You can just. I'm not. I don't. You don't have to. I don't think you have to stand over here, against the wall. But and probably the easiest thing to do, and this is a nice rail for those who maybe would struggle with that, would be when you do enter to maybe just come up through here. Does that work? That work well. Okay. So you guys can just kind of figure out. There's no real thing. But so when the priest receives, when the priest receives out of the chalice, that would be the cue for people to come into the sanctuary. And I know that's new. I know that's conservative priest. But that's what you'll see with the Archbishop. He's asking, that's the cathedral, things like that. It's in there. So there it is. I'm sure the first weekend people will be like, what is going on? And then everyone will be like, that's how we've always done it the next weekend, you know. So anyways, if you have any questions on that, let me know. We'll try it out. And I'm sure it'll be fine. Not that I haven't seen this, but it's in there as well. I just wanted to bring your attention to it. To receive communion after you've distributed, you want to make sure you're receiving as part before you distribute. So I don't know if I've seen that maybe once or twice in a parish where somebody came back and then just kind of fed themselves Jesus. That's, I think, kind of what that's talking about. So, question. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Anytime you have questions, stop me. I'm just trying to get you out of here.
Question about that.
Yeah. Yep.
It has been our practice to one of the Eucharistic ministers, usually the bread minister, to take the Eucharist to the organist after communion.
Yep.
I have a couple of options that we could work through that, and that's one is to have her husband have a pyx,
Right.
or one of the ushers have a pyx.
Absolutely. I think either of those would be great. I think taking it up in a pyx would be a good thing. And I talked with Jill briefly about it a few weeks ago, and I can't remember where we had left it at, but I think that would be, I think we had talked about a pyx, and if you guys want to help coordinate that, that would be huge for me, especially I don't really know people yet, and so yeah, that would be great. I think to take communion up there in a pyx to her would be perfect.
Well, and if not, we are always in Saturday Mass. I can bring my pyx and do it every Saturday. I can just make that part of my
Yeah. Let's see. I just got notified this week. There's a person who has a gluten allergy in the parish, which that you probably typically at a parish you'll have one. That's kind of the average. So what I'll be doing with that is putting that particular host. We've ordered hosts for this person, and I'll put that in a pyx. And I will handle that, and I'll just tell them to get in my line. So I'll put that pyx in with my hosts, and then distribute that to that person. But
Is that a specific pyx that would be dedicated only for the...
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. We probably need to label that. Yeah, because if there's any crumbs. Yep. Thank you for pointing that out. Questions always, I mean, I'm sure if the precious blood is spilled, what we would want to do is just wipe that up with our purificator as best as we can. And then just let me know after Mass, and I'll come back and more thoroughly help with that. We don't have a sacrarium, number 5. That'd be the sink where you dump.
That's a sacrarium.
That is a sacrarium. It goes into the ground. Interesting. Okay. Okay. We'll deal with that later. Let's see. Again, these are not things that I'm not pointing these out because they're going on here. But yes.
Yes, precious blood is spilled and we wipe it off and put it down in our hand. Do we need to go up and get another?
Yeah. That would.
Purificators are kept in
The purificators.
They're all the drawers of water, so
Yep.
top drawer on the top left.
And I'm going to slightly reorganize. Now, that table's going to stay, but what I'm going to do is put the purificators and the small corporals in this cabinet here, and they'll be labeled. But I can get to that in a second. Let's see. When you're distributing, if you could just say the blood of Christ or the body of Christ, sometimes there's Dave, the body of Christ, but then you don't know the next person's name, and so then it's all of a sudden then that person's offended, and okay, and then they leave the church. So number 7, let's see, just a standard thing there about how to, if you're not doing that, I'm sure you are, but just kind of wiping right where that person's received and kind of turning the cup as you go. There we go, you guys. If someone comes for intinction, that would be where you dip the host in the wine. Dip the host in the precious blood. Got to follow my own carefulness here. This is what they say in Boston. I like the wording of that. If the communicant with the consecrated host in hand approaches you distributing the precious blood, it is advisable to cover the chalice with the purificator and just ask the person to talk with the priest after Mass. They're not supposed to be doing that unless they have yeah, they're just not. They're actually, no person's supposed to be doing that except for.
There's a person that does it.
Oh, really?
Do it, and it catches you off guard. They'll come up. They've got the body. Or
Okay. Right.
post.
Yep. Yep.
And then when you hand it, then they go like this, and then you're like.
Oh, yeah, almost a drop type of thing too, which is double negative there.
There's only one person that's ever.
If you don't mind, just let me know sometime, and I'll write that person or contact. I'll call them or handle that just to let them know that. Yeah, I mean, we can't just. There probably needs to be something said from there before you just start. You know, you're out of here. Okay. The other thing then that I would say is just a little bit different about me. I prefer, it doesn't have to be done that way. So the way that was, I'm not judging Father Darvin here. You can do that. You can set them off, the chalices off to the side and purify after Mass. Or there's the two options, or purify right at the end during Mass. I prefer to do it at the end. And so if you could just bring your chalice and just set it on the altar or hand it to, actually, if you could hand it to me, that'd be great. And then I will have the servers bring the water over. I think it gives people more time to pray. And then also, I think for some people who don't, maybe, they say like 90% of Catholics don't really understand that that's the true body and blood of Christ. And so I think if they see somebody being really careful with that, like it's almost like a reinforcement of that. So not that you're not doing a good job, or not that we don't trust you at all, but that's just that'll be a small change on that.
Another thing that happens frequently is a family member, or they'll bring their children up with their hands folded.
Right.
Blessing, but they're in my line and not your line.
Yeah, yeah.
Technically not supposed to give the blessing.
Right.
Is it okay just to put your hand on them and let the child feel that they got a blessing, but technically we're not allowed to?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's helpful to now this is not like me I have special powers, or anything like that. But there is something different the church says about a priest giving a blessing versus we are all God bless you when they sneeze and stuff. So but it's interesting, like a lot of people believe in the devil, but people take off before Mass is over to receive the blessing, It's like, okay. So the best thing to do with that would probably just be to think of something like peace be with you, God be with you.
God bless and keep you.
Yeah, God bless and keep you, anything along those lines. Yeah. But like I had to, I think the only thing that you would, and I haven't seen this, but I think that the main thing that you would want to be careful of too is like not doing like, the blessing motion. It's not, again, not a big deal. Any other questions on distribution? Yeah.
What if we have wine left?
Oh, okay. If there is precious blood left, when you come up, you can do one of two things. When you come up, you can just, I would say probably at the side of the altar, you can just consume the rest. Some people either are not able to or don't want to do that. So when you hand the chalice to me, if there's precious blood in there, I'll notice that, and I'll just take care of that as I'm purifying. So whichever one feels more comfortable for you. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So when we take that Holy Eucharist.
Yes.
We're done.
Yeah.
Just bring it around and place it on the altar, and you take care of that from there?
Yep. It also does, and I didn't put that in here, but the general instruction of the Roman Missal does say that it's the priest is supposed to grab the ciborium out of the tabernacle and also put it back. So again, it's not like I'm trying to take things over. I'm just trying to do what it's described.
Should we hand the ciborium or the cup to you and not put it back on the altar?
I would say if I'm there or going to be there soon, that's a great question. Then the preference of the church is just to hand it to the priest. It's not a huge issue. I would say if let's say you're doing one of the precious blood stations and you run out, and I'm going to still be down here, I think you're fine to just set it on the altar and have a seat. Yeah. Thank you. Good questions. Any other questions? Now, then I'm going to move to phase 2, which we're almost done. It's my understanding that if extraordinary minister of Holy Communion that you also may set up for Mass? Do you all set up for Mass? You just take turns? Is that how that works?
Schedule. We
There's
have a
this-
schedule. The captain's normally set up for Mass. And
Okay. So basically everyone here might set up for Mass at some point. Okay. I'm going to pass this out then. Or if you guys could pass those back. I just need one.
But we're also supposed to be referred to as extraordinary ministers and not Eucharistic ministers.
Yep.
In the bulletin, I believe they put Eucharistic ministers.
I'll change it. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Every priest, again, this is not in any way a condemnation of Father Darvin or the way Father Darvin set this up. You know, every priest is different. My preference actually is there'll be some changes and this will be hanging up in the sacristy back here and on the wall, so that it'll be right there, so that if you have any questions about it, it should be pretty easy to follow along. But I'm going to go ahead and start using this chalice because it's a little bit taller. It doesn't have anything to do with I don't like the other one, or I like, this one's fancier. But the height is actually helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and use this chalice, which is helpful because it looks a lot like the one in the picture. And then the next step for dressing this would be basically to just take a purificator out of the drawer, which will be in there too. It'll be labeled and everything. And if you can just set it like on top. And if you'll notice too, actually I don't think forgot to draw it in there, but it's kind of in the picture. It's easiest to do this with the cross on the bottom of every chalice pretty much has a cross. So if you can like set that towards you, and then you put the purificator on top like that. And then I'm going to start using a smaller paten, which is be this one, and I'm going to use a smaller host. And so that I'll take care of all that. That'll be back there. So the paten goes on top of that like that. And then the host goes on there, which you can see both of those in number 3. This is what was referred to as a pall, and it keeps flies out. Everything in the church has a real practical thing, and I've actually already had to swat a fly on Sunday, last Sunday maybe, trying to crawl into the chalice. So that goes on there, and then I'll use that during Mass to cover and uncover. And then I'm going to have the servers stop using the large corporal, and I'm going to have them use the small corporal. And that gets folded up as it's shown there, and that gets placed on top like in number 6. And it actually kind of... Now, servers, I'm going to train them too, kind of with some of these small things. And I know Marty helps train, so Marty will help this. That'll be great. And I'm also going to help the ladies who clean the thing, the stuff, understand kind of like how to iron those and get them so that really what it is that we can figure it out and you can figure it out, but the servers can't. So if it's not exactly right, they'll freak out and they'll just, and they'll run out. So we'll get that so that the corporals are there and you just pull one out of the drawer and set it on top and it should be good to go. Number 7 and 8, basically, in the long run, what we'll probably do is that there's a thing called a chalice veil, and those are kept in there as well, and that gets put on top of that, and that's something in the germ that you don't, or the general instruction of the Roman Missal in there that's not mentioned much or not done a whole lot, but basically it's just a thing, and you would just drape. When we actually implement that, I'll walk you through that more. Actually, I'll just go grab one real quick. This would be a chalice veil, and it just goes like this on top, and then you can just kind of like pull it down, and then it just sits real nice on there, and it just looks kind of nice. I'm not going to start this until I've shown the servers because they will totally freak out if they see this, right? Okay, so we'll get that squared away. And then the other change is that I'm going to have communion, or I'm going to have the hosts brought up in the back in a ciborium. And again, there's a practical reason for that. if kids walk by and sneeze, or the little kid that reaches up with his sick hand and drags his hand through the host that's sitting out in a plate, then the whole parish is sick. So we're going to start using the ciborium in the back. So if you could fill up the same amount of hosts as you normally would, there are a couple of these that I brought and that are in there, so you can kind of choose. Sometimes we might need 2. There might be like 3 hosts in there, and so then we're going to need 2 of these, and that's fine, whatever it takes. And we'll just be distributing out of that, so we won't use the plates anymore. I'm going to also, another thing is, this is just kind of a personal, I guess this is a personal thing. I want the people that are out there to come in to receive. So no matter how many people are out there in the narthex, they're going to come in and receive communion too. There's just kind of that thought in the church of approaching the altar to receive communion, and we don't want them like, here, we're gonna bring you communion out here to make this faster. We want them to kind of feel part of what we're doing in here too. I'm trying to think.
So, Father,
Yeah.
at the 11 o'clock Mass, there are Eucharistic ministers scheduled to serve in the narthex.
Oh, there are.
So will we just have extra stations here?
Yeah. There are for an 11 o'clock Mass, there's somebody to help me to host, and then there are 4 chalices, is that right?
3 hosts, and 4.
3 hosts are scheduled for every 11 o'clock Mass. Gotcha.
One distributes the
Okay. Yeah. We'll probably just go with, I don't know what to do in the short term. I mean, obviously we can make that change in the long term, but I don't know how to do that the best for...
You have a total of 5 assigned. There's precious blood and the host distributed in the narthex, and then so there's 5 extraordinary ministers.
Okay.
So if you have one helping with
Yeah.
communion, and then the other 2 doing
And then 4 people doing chalices. That would be fine. That would work out. That would be great. So we'll just go ahead and maybe do that. So if you're assigned on a Sunday, we'll just need to figure out who's going to distribute the host, and then the other 4 are chalices. They only put out 3. Okay. Yep. This is great, because this is how I'm learning from you guys too, obviously. Does that work? There are 4 chalices back in the sacristy.
You want the dress chalice?
That dress chalice, yeah, mine can just go over there on that table. And then is it our custom we put the bowl, the towel, and the water over there too? Okay. Another thing that I need help with is you guys set up everything that's basically pertaining to the Mass. Is there somebody else who like turns on the mic or turns on the sound system and turns on the lights? Is it that person, that setup person just does everything basically?
Well, not really, because we don't turn on the mic when the ministers go. Our lights
The
are on.
servers are supposed to check also.
Okay.
Light the candles that stereos and
Maybe what I'll do is I'll put together a to-do list for whoever's setting up for Mass so that you can just follow along. And I'll just add into that, turn on the sound system, turn on the lights in the church. Would there be other things? If you think of other things that should be added to that to-do list, let me know. That'd be great. So, any other questions? Okay. The final thing that I'm going to actually probably get rid of the refrigerator and the stand that's in there. I'm trying to kind of clean up, and I get a little claustrophobic in there. I don't know. I don't have claustrophobia, but I get kind of... And so red wine really isn't supposed to be served chilled anyways. And then the hosts have a shelf life of about 6 years. So we should be okay. We should be okay. That'll be, I don't know exactly where they'll land. They might be in the closet. Obviously, most of the wine would be kept in that locked closet because we don't want the servers coming out and serving. And yeah. But that we'll get all that. But I just wanted to let you know of that. Hopefully this week I can get that all squared away, drawers labeled, things moved and everything. So thank you for all that you do. And yeah, you're awesome. So if you have any questions or things, hey, Father, you need to do this, or this needs to change, or this would make things better.
Will this start next weekend?
We'll just go ahead and dive in next weekend, yeah. And then I'll get the servers caught up later. They'll just kind of take the chalice and walk around, and I'll be like, go over there. Yeah. So, yeah.
I forget the term, the technical term for the cloth.
Oh, that chalice veil thing.
The chalice, where are they going to be located?
Those are in the drawers down there. And what I'm going to label is, I mean, that'll be a long-term thing, but the drawers are going to be like green, red, purple, white. And then so when you would, if you needed a green one for that mass, yeah. Thank you.
Can we just go off with the altar colors, right?
That's a great question. Yeah. I need to work out with the sacristan, the ladies that set up how exactly that whole routine will go. Because sometimes, like,
Have a calendar back there.
yep.
Biddles and Curtin that had each of the colored, I don't know if it's still back there, if we got them last night.
I don't see the thing back there. It's called an Ordo. It's a green book. Have you guys seen that before, that Ordo? It's a green little book.
Yeah, it used to be on the shelf.
Okay. Yeah, it's not, I don't see it. Let's just go ahead and we'll put a system in place for the
You can have
color.
the secretary, she also puts one in the servers.
Oh,
It says what color.
the color for the weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could do a similar copy.
Yeah. Luckily, we're good for the next 20 weeks or so. We're green. So we just got out of like changing back and forth for like the 6 months of the year. Now we're in that 6-month window where it's like basically green till Advent. So, but yeah, no, great questions. And I'll get that ironed out, and I'll just leave a note there once we get a system in place for who, yeah, you can kind of trickle down. So, any other questions or anything? Okay, thank you so much. I'm sure your families are waiting and you're hungry, and so God bless you.